welcome back to another Soup Sessions. I'm Shawanna Kennedy, your host. I'm excited because having this creative conversation with people that you know that are other creatives and do amazing things. Today, I have none other than the fractional COO herself, Miss Sha Cannon. I like it here in Soup Sessions because we get to talk about where creativity it simmers and our stories, they get to serve up a little bit. And every guest that we bring up, they add a little bit of flavor to this whole mix. Shay, come on into this conversation. I'm so glad that you are able to join me here at Soup Sessions. What's up, Shay?
What's up? I'm glad to be here. Tell y'all what I'm cooking. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, we already know you cooking. So anybody that's watching this, y'all already know. Just pull up, look, get your fork, get your spoon, and your knife because I love having conversations with you, Shay, because you really do. You crack some things open. You actually crush some things when we think about cooking some stuff up. But I have to ask you, where did that soul stirring creativity come from for you?
You know, I feel like the first I kind of knew where it came from was in middle school when you got that little black and white composition notebook in your English class, and it was time for you to first do creative writing, right? I think that was the point when I knew I was creative because I've always liked reading. I've always liked art. You know, I could always draw and all that kind of stuff. But that came so natural. The first time I had to do it in a way that, you know, I had to follow some guidelines and understand, you know, different formulas for things was middle school, you know, that creative writing in English class. That's definitely hit a mark on me. It really has.
No, I love it. And you say in middle school, it's funny because a lot of people, I guess that's when we're starting to kind of feel ourselves a little bit. And we are actually starting to discover some things when I think about going back, though, you know, sometimes we want to think that far back. But it really does help us to know how far we've come when we think about our gifts. And you saying, when I think about stirring up the gift, who else was like a part of that? Because I see us, you know, right? Because I know you're an Alabama girl. And when I think about us being in the country, because, you know, I'm a little bit from Mississippi myself. And I think about my grandma and being in there and then, you know, rolling out some things and mixing some things in the kitchen. Who was one of the people that helped inspire you and help to groom your creativity?
So, you know, when it comes to being in the kitchen, I come from a long line of Alabama women that did not cook. Baby, we were all women of convenience, okay? We wasn't really that domestic. However, that creativity came out in different ways in my family. It came out in dress. It came out in interior design. It came out in liking, you know, having a fetish for purses and shoes, you know, fashion. And so when I think about what influenced my creativity early on in those ways, I would definitely say them church folk, right? I would say that, you know, Easter comes and you got all of the different, you know, dresses and, you know, bobby socks with the frills and all. But when it comes to church folks and the women in the church, baby, you can't beat a good creative hat. Okay. A church hat, that crown, I feel like is where it really I really started to understand, wait a minute, this some different stuff. So yeah, I think that when I started to actually see it and it made an impact on me visually, it was definitely church.
I know a thing or two about that. And I could think about some hats because in my day, you know, look, in another former life, I've sat in a seat where I wore a few first lady hats. And I remember people gifting me hats. And I was like, oh, this is what we're doing. Okay, no, I don't know that that's a part of me and my creativity because, you know, back then I was like, oh, the cost of a hat, I could create and do something else with that money. I'm just saying. Yeah, but I love it. When I think about you and what you get to do to help other people, you really do have to be creative and how you could really listen at a list of things and help
Yeah.
people come up with some magnificent pieces. So how does that
Yes.
work for you in your creativity? How you're able to just hear somebody run down a list of actually some of their problems, some of their challenges,
Mhm.
and you're able to then come out with this beautiful piece to help them actually guide them to what I see right behind you, making their first and or second six figures.
Yes. So, as a fractional chief operating officer, operations is all about building. It's all about adding structure. So, as a fractional COO, I create resources and processes that achieve revenue and lifestyle goals, right? And so that it kind of behooves you to have a structure that is general, that kind of puts businesses in, and you start with a general structure and then you get more creative. And the things that make it the most creative is, it's funny because it's the thing a lot of businesses run away from, and that is clarity. They're so busy trying to look like everybody else, they don't understand that their clarity is their opportunity to be creative as a business. You know, a lot of these businesses are in saturated industries. They're not the only loaf of bread on the bread aisle. You look down the aisle, it's a bunch of bread, right? So you have to be creative to stand out when it's a bunch of people doing what you do. So we start with general structure, but then we have to add the creativity of clarity. Who are you, right? As the person that is given this service or that has this product. Who is the niche down version of who you serve? You can't just be general and say, oh, I just want to serve women. No, you got to niche it down so that when you are talking to them, they understand who you're talking to. Exactly what is the main problem that you're solving as a business offering, right? And then it comes to, understanding their pain points, because they have this problem. What pain are they in? And then now we come in with the great big creativity, which is how are you going to solve that problem? And so creativity in business, when you're not clear on certain things, when you lack clarity, that's when you start to lack creativity, because a lot of the other stuff can look just like everybody else's. So, as a fractional chief operating officer in operations, we love a well-oiled machine, but we oil that machine and run it around the creativity of that particular business.
I love that you brought that up, because when I think about that, it's like, and being in business with some folks, whether you're 10, 20 years in, it's clarity is key. So with all of the people that you've had the opportunity to help, to work with, what does that look like, and how challenging is that, where every now and then you do have to go back and look to make sure not only the why, we know we talk about why all the time and what that looks like, what that feels like, because that's the thing that make us want to keep going when we want to stop. But when you talk about clarity, how is that challenging with some of the folks that you've had to actually even help? I mean, because sometimes that could be crazy, and you're like, we've been here before. I've heard you, right? I've been a part of your morning show, and the people, and watch the people that you get to serve. How do you help the people when they're like, and you're like, well, we've talked about this. We've looked at your clarity. We've walked through the clarity. How do you help them?
So a lot of it is understanding what their obstacles are, and different business owners have different obstacles. So I try to help entrepreneurs in different formats, right? So I do have where I'm a fractional COO, and I come in the business and I manage everything and I run everything, including the teams and the business, and sometimes the CEO, right? But then I also come at entrepreneurs who cannot afford that service from me, and I want to coach you to your first six figures, right? And then I come at people who, maybe you're not used to coaching. So I have the morning show where I introduce you to coaching in more of a broadcast live stream, show format, but you're still going to get what you need. So it's funny how we're talking about creation recipes, right? When it came to the morning show, like everything with operations, I had to start with clarity. I had to start with the understanding of why am I having this morning show, right? Who exactly is it for? What is the one main problem I'm trying to solve with this morning show? So that's where I had to start, the clarity of it all. So that's the first piece of the recipe. And then what is the goal? What is the transformation that I want people to take away from the morning show every time they tune in? And then I had to say, okay, you know what? In working with entrepreneurs on different levels, I understand there are going to be obstacles to them achieving the goal, right? So if I go to the clarity, I understood I wanted to niche down to online service-based entrepreneurs, mostly BIPOC, Black and brown women. Okay, I knew that was the clarity. So, the way I'm speaking, I'm talking about how we're nurturers. I'm talking about how we put other people before us. I'm talking about all those things that have to do with that particular subset of entrepreneurs. So I knew who my who was, right? I knew that the goal was going to be business growth, getting to your first six figures. Because when people talk about revenue goals and all of that, they're trying to go beyond six figures. But what about that interesting journey of getting to that first six figures, right? Because see, once you get to it, now you've entered a different arena. But before you ever get to it, that's a whole journey in and of itself. So I want to talk to that particular journey. And I understood that in that particular journey came special obstacles. I understood that most entrepreneurs start off just selling something that people happen to want to buy, but they don't really have business acumen, right? They don't really know how to, once they sell that stuff to mom and them, how to go past them and actually have what feels like a real business. And so I understood those obstacles. And so I understand I can't just give you strategies without talking about this journey that is unique to you being where you are in your business before you get to that first six figures. And then I understood that the next step of the recipe, if step one is clarity, and step two is the goal, and step three is the obstacle, step four is giving them the resources that they need, right? I have to give you the resources. I'm not the one working in your business. You're not a part of my coaching program, but I want to give you some resources so that you can start to turn the tide towards that first six figures. So that was kind of my creation recipe for the morning show, that clarity, that goal, the obstacles, and then giving resources. So that's how I kind of, tackle that type of thing. So
I
that was
love
my
it.
little
If anybody, if they looking and listening, they know that you definitely be cooking up some stuff. And if you've had the opportunity to check her out, man, you fire all the time anyway. You fire. Look, I need one of those buzzers, right? I need a buzzer. I need a buzzer. Yeah, when I think about it though, and anybody to know that you live your life by design, you live it on purpose, in purpose, all the things, and you live a life of freedom. Right now, I believe we probably would. I know I'm having a conversation with you and you over where? Tell the people, tell them where you at. Where you at right now?
I'm currently in Osaka, Japan, but this weekend I'll be in Okinawa, Japan. So right now I'm about to end a year-long tour of Southeast Asia. So, I just believe that your business is supposed to fund your freedom, and my freedom happens to look like me living and working my business from anywhere in the world. So I've been what they call an expat, which is short for expatriate, where I don't live in my home country of the United States. I've been one since 2018. And so I've been different places, but I had never been to Asia. And I decided, hey, let me go on tour and go to Asia. Right. And it's funny because that's a great segue, okay, to the next recipe, because another show that I have right here on Indie Soup is Design Your CEO Lifestyle. Right. And what I understood about that is, a lot of people see my brand of freedom and they say they want that, or they just wish that they could be as free as I am, even if they don't travel to different countries. Just in their normal life, in their hometown, could they even think as free as I think, right? So some of that could look like not worrying about what people think about me. Some of that can look like setting a goal and not letting anything get in my way, not even fear. So a lot of that kept coming back to me, and I kept wondering why people didn't understand that there's nothing special about me except for I don't allow anything to get in my way. You can have a life of freedom. You just have to decide that's what you want, and then you have to work towards it. So if I go back to my recipe for how I did that show, Design Your CEO Life, what I understood was I am talking to business owners, and some of them are CEOs, which means they are the chief executive officer. They have other officers, they have teams, but they still don't feel freedom in their business, and they want to. So I knew that that was the goal, right? So I got the clarity, step one, and then we got the goal, which is freedom. But then I understood the obstacles were different. Most of the obstacles for business owners that want freedom is mindset. They're in their own way. That's the only thing in the way of you having your freedom is your mindset. And so I understood that that was the obstacle. So that's what I tackled that for 3-4 seasons, right? And knowing that obstacle, step 4 for this recipe was a little different, right? So for growing your business, step 4 was the resources. But for growing your mindset for that freedom, processes, okay? Processes. It's not that we don't use processes in business. It's that I understood that shifting that mindset took a process. And so in that show, that's what I gave. Every time we talked, I tackled a different obstacle, and I gave you a process to help you to overcome that mindset and get yourself out your own way. That's your second recipe right there.
No, you know what? You over here, you got the whole cabinet, you got the pantry, the stove is open, the refrigerator is wide open. Yes. So while we right here, real quick, how can people stay in touch with you?
So you can find me on social media at Sha Cannon COO everywhere. So that's ShaCannon COO everywhere. Any social media that I'm on, that is where you can find me. I really do a lot of talking about my travels and all of that on Facebook. So you can follow me on Facebook. But again, you can find me Sha Cannon on Facebook. But that's where I talk a lot. You get a lot of this great personality on Facebook. But I'm also on YouTube. I'm not doing a lot on TikTok. I'm not doing a lot on Twitter. But I'm there. Follow me.
I love it. I love it. Now I got, this conversation is always spicy when I have you here. I do need to know, and just for in case, because you've given a lot. You've shared a lot. And I'm fortunate. I'm blessed to have you to the whole iron sharpen iron. When we think about conversation, when I think about, creativity simmering, you help to stir up and to simmer definitely my own creativity. And so I'm glad that you're a person that really do add flavor and spice to what it is that I get to do by helping other people be seen, be heard, and known for their brilliance. What I have to ask you so that you can help before we, just kind of, get up out of this and eat some more soup. How would you help somebody? What piece of advice would you want to leave with them in 60 seconds?
So I would like to help you to discover your creativity by thinking about what it is that you're willing to do and lose sleep for, maybe eat a little later for, something that you get engrossed in and you start having, time is just passing and you just don't understand that all these hours have passed. I want you to look at some of those things that are your passion and understand that creativity doesn't always look like art. It doesn't always look like, writing, right? Some of the ways that some of you are able to put together recipes that you eat is art, is creativity, right? Some of the ways that you are able to put your clothes together is art and creativity. There is art and creativity in a lot of things. I have heard people speak and talk that are wordsmiths, and just the way that they string those words together is creativity. And so I just want you to know that creativity doesn't always look like what you think it does. But when you think about that thing that you're willing to pass a lot of time for, sacrifice for, that you enjoy doing, that might be where your creativity lies. So be okay with that, and encourage yourself to do it often.
I love it. I love it. I love it. You know, we appreciate you over here. We appreciate you over here. Thank you so much, Shay, for stopping by, having a little conversation with me where they kind of get to lean in and listen a little bit what we had to talk about today. So I want to thank you, that's right, you, and you for joining us for this session of Soup Sessions. I'm Shawanna Kennedy, your host. This is the safe space, the conversation where what? Creativity simmers, a little bit of stories are served, and yes, you, the creative, add a little bit more flavor to every time we meet. I thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next time. Bye for now.